folks. Welcome back to the Priory Podcast. My name is Dave Jackson. Welcome to, well, it's my shed. It's raining outside, so I had to dive in here real quick to do this intro. So today on episode number 9, we have a 28-year retired Air Force Senior Master Sergeant, hint number 1. In the Air Force, he was in telecommunications and a broadcaster, hint number 2. In 1989, he was a vocalist on a Dream Into the Future tour, number 3. And finally, hint number 4, because you're going to figure it out real quick after this. In 1993, on the 40th anniversary of Tops and Blue, the One Song, One Voice tour. That's right. We have my tour director, Mr. Mark Fletcher, here on the podcast. So please welcome my good friend and my tour director in 1993, Mr. Mark Fletcher. On you. Mark Fletcher, thank you so much for coming on the Priory Podcast.
Dave Jackson, it is so good to see you, my brother. So good to see you.
Man,
it is an honor to be here.
Oh, no, it's an honor to have you on, buddy. Honor to have you on. How
Thank
are you? Doing all right?
I'm good. I'm good. Enjoying life in the DMV here near Washington, D.C. Fighting traffic every day. Still working for the government. Still working, believe it or not. But yeah, life is good. All kids are grown, but life is good.
I had no idea you had 28 years active duty.
28 years Air Force active duty. Yes, sir, my friend.
So you got so since you're still working in the realms of the federal world, you got to be close to retirement.
Well, you know, everybody asked me that. And
of course.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, I could retire as early as next year or now if I wanted to, or I could do another 10 years. It just depends if I want to piss people off. So, because I love what I do. So,
Yeah.
you know, I still shoot video for a living, which is amazing. I still get to use my voice once in a while, which is still amazing, like for announcers and stuff. So, yeah, it just depends on how long. You know, right now I'm having fun, and I say as long as I'm having fun.
That's half the battle. That's half the battle right there. As long as you're having fun. Yeah.
It's not a chore getting out of bed every day, and so until it becomes a chore, why not just because what am I going to do when I retire?
I don't know. What would you do if you retired? Let's play that. Let's play that game. If you retired right now, what would you do?
I would want to be like you and do a podcast.
Every organism on Earth is doing a podcast, Mark. Why not?
I know. And so you're taking all the ideas. So I don't know what I would like to do a podcast someday, but I don't know what it would be on. But yeah, like maybe that's what I would do if I retired or play golf.
Or play golf. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or karaoke.
One thing we've never talked about, or if we did, I don't remember talking about it, is I never talked about your 89 tour with you, even back in 93. I don't think I ever talked to you about that. Sure. When did you see your first TIB show?
Wow. This is going to sound very, very bad. But it may not have been until 1989 when I saw my first TIB show.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I knew talent contest existed. Okay. I knew Tops and Blue existed. But I don't think I ever saw a show in its entirety. And if I did, I don't remember. I know it sounds terrible, but I don't. I just knew that there was this organization called Tops and Blue. Now, what I will tell you, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. Let me backtrack. So in 1986, I was stationed in Virginia, Fort Monroe, Virginia, and I competed in a talent contest. Okay. And so I did know of Tops and Blue then. I don't know if I had seen a show yet, but I competed at the base level, and then I went to Tactical Air Command's at that time, which is now ACC, I went and competed in their major command talent contest.
Okay.
I tried to, obviously make Tops of Blue, but I didn't make it past that. But I did get selected, and I hate to bring this up because maybe people might be mad at me, but I did get selected as a male vocalist to tour with Air Combat Command Stars of Sound in 1986.
Oh, okay.
So it was a 3-month tour, and we did all the ACC bases, or at that time TAC bases, and so it was pretty cool. It was a good experience.
So you did your first talent show in '86. You got through base level. You made it to command level, and then it stopped there. You didn't make it past
there. Didn't make it past there.
So in '87, you didn't compete again in '87.
No, I at 87 I got stationed in the Philippines. It wasn't until 1988 I competed, and that was when I first reached out and branched out into a whole new genre. I did R&B, Luther Vandross Superstar.
Okay.
So I did that in 1988. I went as far as, again, Major Command. I went to, at that time it was PACAF, or still PACAF. I went to PACAF, made it to PACAF, but I didn't get selected to go forward to Worldwide.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And then 89. Yeah, 89. So 89, I got selected. I sang another Luther Vandross song. I went to, I made it on the PACAF team to go to Worldwide. Mm-hmm. I did I did Love Won't Let Me Wait by Luther Vandross in 89.
I'm seeing a trend. I'm seeing a trend.
Oh, you know it. Love Luther. Love me some Luther. Yeah. So funny story. And not a lot of people know this. So in 89, they picked the teams, and I remember vividly talking to Mr. Edwards. I was talking to Chief, and I think he asked me, "Are you ready to go?" At that time, if you remember, at that time, you got selected at the Worldwide Talent Contest. You went directly into staging.
Yeah.
You didn't go home.
No, you went, straight in.
Yeah, you went directly into staging. So, but I remember I wasn't prepared. I will be honest with you. I wasn't prepared. So I said, "Sir, if I were to get selected for Tops and Blue, I wouldn't be able to I'd have to go home first because all my stuff is still in my house and all that." So what people don't know is I didn't get selected. I didn't get selected for Tops and Blue in 1989. Breaking news, folks. Breaking news. That's just in. So I went. So I went back to my base, which was Clark Air Base, the Philippines. Mm-hmm. I went back, and I was bummed, but I went back, and day-to-day mission happened, and all of a sudden, I think it was probably May timeframe, because I think Worldwide was in March back then. I got a phone call. And basically they said, "Mark Fletcher." I'm like, "Yes." And I think it was J.B. Brooks that called me, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but I know somebody called me and they said, "Are you available to tour with Tops and Blue?" And I talked to my supervisor and he said, "Yes." And so I got on a plane, went to Texas, and the rest is history.
Were you shocked you got the call?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I was so excited I got the call. You have no idea.
So you weren't part of the original selection. You were post original selection, like something may have happened to somebody else and they called you. Okay.
That's exactly what happened. The other person that I replaced, who did a Luther Vandross song, by the way, I think he had to go home for some reason beyond my knowledge of why, but yeah, he left the team, and so they needed to fill a male vocalist slot, and they called me, and like I said, it changed the course of my life forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, wow. I honestly inherited a family like no other family ever, besides my own personal family. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yep. I would completely agree with that. So for the '89 tour, for the folks that don't know, kind of give me a breakdown of the theme of the tour of that show.
It was Dreaming to the Future, which, by the way, if you'll bear with me just 1 second here, right here, Dream
Oh, look at that. Look at
into the
this.
Future.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
got my jacket.
Nice.
It was based in like a little, it was Murphy's Grill.
Okay.
And Murph was the head cook, the head manager. And we were all high schoolers getting ready to graduate, trying to figure out where we were going to go in life. And it was it was such a cool setting. Like you had the part of the stage was the grill, and the tables, and Murphy's Grill, and yeah. So it just basically was a dream into the future, where you were going to be down the line in the future. So it was such an incredible tour.
Was it
And
were you stateside or overseas?
overseas.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I got so lucky when they called me. I did the overseas tour,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so it was so I got there in May, and we did nothing, and so they had a stateside tour. We were all together, so we all practiced together, but obviously they left before we did and went out on the stateside tour, and we didn't leave until August 15th. Our first show, I believe, was in Germany on August 15th of 1989.
Wow.
And so I was there in Texas the whole summer. We were rehearsing, and those days of rehearsal and the long hours, and it was nothing like it. Nothing like it ever.
Right. Who was your tour director that year?
The tour director that year was Antoine Wilson.
Antoine.
My man, Antoine. Love him.
Oh, Antoine. I gotta get Antoine. I gotta get a hold of Antoine.
I'm sure he has thousands of stories to tell.
Oh, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. What was, just to compare, and we'll jump to '93 stuff here in a minute, to compare physically the set you guys had to build in '89 compared to '93, which was the tougher set? Which was the toughest, most logistical thing to build and take down? In your opinion?
I will have to say, I think the '89 set was a little more difficult. But as you know, going to the '93 tour, which was the 40th anniversary of Tops and Blue, the set was in the shape of a box, a gift box, right? Like a box. And so if you recall, the doors for that, when they started the show, would open up. Mm-hmm. So many issues with the doors opening up. It was crazy. Unlike, so I would say it was more elaborate on the '89 tour, but as far as the making the set work on '93, man, it was tough.
The mechanics. So the mechanics were tougher on the '93. You basically had a set. Yeah, I guess that's the right word. A set in '89. Nothing open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back, up, down, nothing like that.
Exactly.
Was Paul Burnley on your tour with you?
He was.
I remember that guy.
He was a phaser. I think it was a phaser.
I remember him. So I was in the USAFE talent shows '89 and '90, and Paul Burnley was a star over there.
He was a star in the show. He was fabulous. And the funny thing is, so Paul played a role of if you will, like the nerd in school. There's always one. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Had the glasses and the tape, right?
He had the glasses and the tape. And the funny thing is, when they were picking roles of who was going to do what for the show in '89, all I could think of in the back of my head, God, I know I'm going to get pegged for this. I know I'm going to get pegged for this because I'm such a nerd. Anyway, right? So I'm like, I'm going to get pegged. I didn't get pegged. It was Paul, and Paul was fabulous. He did such an incredible job.
Yeah, he was good at that. Yep. Wow.
He was
so good. Let's move forward to '93 a little bit. I'm curious as to how you got the job. So folks know Mark was my tour director in '93.
he was also a performing tour director. So I want to talk about that a little bit. How tough was that being a tour director and a performer?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, Mr. Edwards called me,
Mm-hmm.
asked me to be tour director.
So Tom called you directly?
Yeah, he
Okay.
called me, and I will tell you honestly, Dave, I was taken back. Tops and Blue, and I know it is for you and all those, family Tops and Blue members out there listening, how special Tops and Blue is,
Mm-hmm.
and how much it means to each of us in our heart. And one of the first things I told Mr. Edwards was, I said, I'm totally honored, but I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to let you down.
Yeah.
Because I know how much the program means to him,
Yeah.
and meant to him. And I didn't want to be that person to let him down in the tour.
Right.
So that was the toughest thing for me was, okay, if I accept this, position, I want to make sure I do the best job I can. Number one. Number two, tough because I came in as an E5.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
And there were people that outranked me. And I'm going to tell you, and I know, Dave, we talked about this before in person. I wasn't the greatest tour director. I'm going to tell you right now, I wasn't the greatest tour director. If I could do it, and of course, if we could do things over, we do things a lot differently. I thought we had a great cast, very talented cast. I wish I could have done a better job in leading you guys. But it was a tough tour. It was a 40th anniversary tour, the first time Tops of Blue ever ventured out into Eastern Europe, as you know, which was such an honor. That was such an incredible tour.
Yeah.
And the stories we can tell of the people that greeted us, and it was incredible.
Yep.
And so it was a tough tour, great cast, and very challenging for me. Very rewarding when it was all over with. But again, when you go back and you rewind, you're like, man, I wish I could have done things so much differently and been done better at this or that. But still amazing.
Yeah. Well, I did. Tom asked me to be tour director of the '97 tour, and so that was the 50th anniversary of the Air Force tour. So I was like, yeah. Having said that, 4 months into it, I had to go home. And I've told the story to other folks I've had here on the podcast. That was very tough. That was tough. And and one of the things that made it tougher was I never should have went on tour, because at that time I was building a house back in Delaware, and I left that to my wife to worry about. And that was a big no-no, Mark. I should have never gone. And we were losing the house, so I had to tell Tom I had to go home. I had to sit him down. So I got that in the middle of the night walk, and took me to the airport. And but that 4 months as TD was very tough. I mean, and I wasn't in it long enough to get my groove on with it, to have a system totally. We didn't have that. I think we had maybe 12 shows in before I had to go. And I didn't quite have my system down. When do you think, by the time I left, when do you think you had how you wanted to do that? I mean, obviously with guidance from Tom and what he expected.
Sure.
How far into the tour do you think it took before you had your system down as a tour director?
Well, if you recall the tour, so at the time, I was married. And kind of like you, I'll be honest, the story is similar to yours, where there was a point where I'm like, okay, I can't do this right now. I've really got to go focus on my family.
Yeah.
And I regretted doing it. I'm going to be honest with you. I had to do the same thing. I had to call chief and say, sir, I am sorry to do this, but I can no longer do this.
Yeah.
So the plan was to do the tour up until we went overseas. So our last show was in Dover.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to leave the tour at that time. Now, not to air my dirty laundry in front of the world here, but something happened in my personal situation where I had to call Chief and say, Chief, can I please stay?
Yeah. Oh.
Can I please stay on the tour? I need a week to take care of some personal things, but I don't want to leave the tour. Is there any chance I can stay on the tour? So if you remember, I left in Dover.
Yeah,
the team went on to Europe. I stayed back for a week. And let me tell you, one of the greatest moments of the tour, 93, for me anyway, besides the Eastern Europe tour, was everybody, wished me well, when and I stayed behind. But I'll never forget when I flew to Europe, I met the team. And as horrible as a tour director I was, I'm telling you, when I showed up there, Dave, all you guys came up, you gave me hugs, you embraced me, and it was so overwhelming for me because, as I said earlier, Thompson Blue is a family, and my family was there for me when I was going through some really, really difficult times. Yeah. And for you guys to embrace me like that and welcome me back after being gone a week, it was pretty awesome. It was pretty. It was one of the highlights of that tour for me, besides performing and being with you guys. For you guys to treat me that way, it was special.
Yeah, I do remember. I do remember you leaving. I remember you had discussions that you had to go. I remember you were kind of hemming and hawing about whether you should go or not. And I did that for probably a month before I decided to pull out. Said Chief, because Tom was on the road with us when I did this, and I just had to let him know. But what was awesome was when I got back to Delaware, he called me the next day and wanted to know if everything was going to work out and I could come back on the road, which was very nice. I mean, he didn't have to do that, but sure. I told him, I said, there's no way it was going to happen. So I felt that was the only time I've ever in my career, either civilian or military, I've actually quit. So essentially I quitted. That was the only time I've ever done that. Broke my heart, but I had to do it. I should never went to begin with, but
anyway. No, and I got you. Yeah. I mean, it was one of the toughest decisions I ever had to make. And like I said, it just happened to be fate that it ended up that I didn't leave the tour, and he allowed me, which was so gracious of him, to give me that time and that space for that week to take care of some personal things, and then rejoin the tour. And that just kind of showed me, how much. Yeah, the tour is huge. The tour is everything, and I know how much he loved the tour, and I love Thompson Blue, and still does. But for him to say, you know what, you do your thing, you take care of yourself, take care of your family, you do what you got to do. That says a lot, because the tour is going to go on, but you need a tour director. And he let me, he gave me the space I needed, and forever I'll be grateful for that. And he's always been there for me, always.
It was watching you do what you did, and I took a lot of memory from watching you in 93 when I went on the road in 97, and things had changed technology wise. Like I was doing emails in 93 and putting stuff on floppy disk and sending it back to Texas and stuff like that. What did you have to do? I mean, I know you had to do show reports at the end of each show. Was that stuff you just mailed back? What did you do with that stuff? All the show reports, tapes and stuff. What did you do?
A lot of times it was conversations with Chief on the phone.
So you didn't have to do show reports and send it back to Texas or anything like that?
I may have, but I know I had to, call in, and I talked to him about the show, and hey, how was the show? How the team do? And some nights great, some nights we were a little off, and and I let him know, and then we figure out, okay, this is what we need to work on when we have some downtime, and then. We did a lot of, back then, we did the vouchers, and everybody got paid. So I'm sure you remember that part of it, and everybody got their $8 a day.
$75 for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, you were like excited to get that money
It's like,
until
yeah,
you had to
we're
pay
eating
for your
good tonight,
fines.
kids.
Until you had to pay for your fines.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. Yeah. Did you guys have the fine system in '89?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know. Wow.
Absolutely. Um, so that part was, um, so the finances and then getting everything squared away, and
Yeah.
making sure folks had rooms, and one of the craziest things for me was, and I don't know if you remember this, but if you remember uh, like at the end of the banquet, or at the banquet, you would always have to say the speech
Mm-hmm.
as a tour director. You remember
Yeah.
that, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and I don't a true story. I don't know if you remember this story, but and I don't want to share Tops and Blue secrets. I don't want to do this,
That's fine. That's fine.
but you would get up, and there were going to be, at some bases, supported Tops and Blue better than others, as
Yes.
we know,
Yeah.
and those that did, we made sure that we recognized that, and that the team did their thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember, I was one of the bases, and the colonel was, I got up and I was like, we're so grateful to be here, sir, and
Right.
thank you for the opportunity. And I just, we just, on behalf of Tops and Blue, sir, I just want to tell you I love you. And people were like, "What?" Like, I didn't say it at the time, but I'm like,
I
yes, sir.
don't remember that. I do not remember that. That's hysterical.
Yeah, I'm like, oh God, what did I just say? I'm gonna pay hell from the team on this one.
That's hysterical.
But I did. I
Wow.
said, yep, sir, I love you. And so thank you for all the hospitality.
You know, the only other thing I can remember, well, I mean, there was a lot of embarrassing stuff, but on the equal footing to that one was when Marty was singing God Bless the USA, and he inserted my neighbor and his wife. He completely dumped the lyric and said my neighbor and his wife.
Oh, that's classic. That's great.
Yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
did you know when you got to staging in '93, did you know you were going to be a performer as well, or did Tom kind of did Chief just work your way into that?
Yeah, no, Chief just worked me into that. I had no idea I was going to perform, which, I love performing. So I was pretty excited about that part of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when
Well,
he asked me to do a couple songs, I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I'd love
I
to.
remember you were not scared about taking on stuff. I mean, you couldn't wait to be on stage. I
Yeah,
always got the impression. Well, that was for all of us. That hour and a half, we just actually loved performing, and I
yeah,
especially got that vibe from you. You could not wait to go out, whether you were doing a monologue before Let Freedom Ring, or if you were singing with doing the acapella stuff. You could not wait. You were like you were a kid in candy store, man.
it
Absolutely.
was. It was a lot of fun. And going to the stories, because on that tour again, we talked about it. It was the 40th anniversary tour. So I would come out, welcome everybody to the 40th anniversary tour of Tops of Blue,
Yeah.
and right. And so if you remember, we went to Eastern Europe, Chief said, I want you to go out, and the first 2 lines or 3 lines of that monologue, you're going to say it in that language. So we
What?
would go. So yes, I don't know if you remember this. So we would go to these places, and sometimes we would get into the spot the day of the show. So I get into the day of the show, and you're working with, I don't know if the USMBC folks were there helping us out as well, but some of these places I would go in there, and the first thing I would do while everybody was setting up is I would go and get the rep and say, hey, all right, I need you to tell me how to say this in this line. Welcome to the Tops of Blue 40th anniversary tour.
Yeah.
So I did that, and there's no cue cards, there's no index card you take out on the stage.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm memorizing this stuff. And so I go out, and for the most part, it's easy to say, hello, or in the different languages.
1 or 2 words is easy. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you gotta do like a line or two, and I'll never forget. I don't know if it was Latvia. All I know, man, I butchered it. I was so bad that when I went out on stage, because it's you memorize it. So I memorized it, and then I went out and I would forget it. So I'm trying to make these lines, and I could hear the audience giggling, man.
Right.
It was a disaster. God
Wow.
knows I could have caused an international incident with what I said.
Well,
because I don't remember what it was.
That's a great segue to international incidents. What is your recollection? And was it Poland? We did the 2 shows in the soccer stadium, and the wrong national anthem got played. Do you remember that?
Gosh, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. I don't remember that, but not good.
This is what I remember, and if somebody on the '93 team wants to correct me, or Tom, or whoever.
Yeah.
So, and Roy Mills and I talked about this recently when we were backstage. I want to say it was Poland. All I remember was we were doing 2 shows, an afternoon show and an evening show. It was a soccer stadium. So, anyways, we're there. Stage is closed. We're backstage. I got my bass on. Roy's up here on the riser next to me. And they played our national anthem first because we were the guest country. So we're all there with our hands in our hearts doing that whole thing. And then the next thing you know, we hear dun 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 dun. And Roy looks at me and he looks down and he goes, "Isn't that the Soviet Union national anthem?"
Oh my gosh, no.
And what I remember was it was all, even though I knew it was a CD, and I swear to God, it sounded like somebody took a needle off a record. and I remember, maybe this is more apocryphal than I remember, but I remember gasps from the audience because it was like there was the Soviet Union national anthem playing in a country that used to be under the Soviet Union.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I remember Derek having to explain it.
I probably went and hid under a rock at that point.
I remember it being a big deal. And I remember thinking that after a while the audience calmed down and they realized we weren't like, Soviet troops dressed as performers and thinking that we were coming into their town. But the show went off with a hitch, and we had a great second show that evening. But I remember that being a big deal. I'm surprised you don't remember that.
I don't remember that. Oh my gosh, wow! Like I said, I probably at that point hid under a rock or something because that's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. When we got off of tour in '93, obviously you had to hang around in San Antonio to do paperwork and whatnot.
Yeah.
Did you hit the wall differently as a tour director than you did as a performer in '89? Because everybody hits the wall. We all talk about the wall after tour. Did you hit a different type of a wall after the '93 tour?
I did, because you're right. After everybody leaves, like, it is such a lonely feeling. You're with you and the rest of the crew, the cast, for what? A year, almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody gets their tickets and they go their separate ways. And I'm there. And at that time, I had to write EPRs.
Right.
Like, I had to write EPRs for everybody and give them to the chief and the team there. So I stayed back and did that. And, going back to the dorm at that point, I mean, it was really, really.
That would have sucked.
Yeah, it sucked. It really did suck because, here you are, music and sets and, and logistics for 12 months. Yeah. And then everybody's gone and then it's nothing but quiet.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was really surreal, to be very honest with you. And I'll never forget it. Very quiet, both times for that matter. In '89, I didn't stay back because, I wasn't tour director in '89. But, when you leave the tour, man, it's like a part of you is missing.
Yeah.
Like you miss you miss the family that you were with for 12 months. You're tired. And you are excited about little R&R, But like I said, there was nothing in my military career ever that I experienced like that.
Yeah.
Ever. It was unbelievable. I mean, the things we got to see and do and experience, and the bonds that were created amongst all of us. Some good, some bad, as you know. I mean, that's just the way tour life is.
Yep.
And no sugarcoating that whatsoever. I know everybody can attest to that. But it as I said before, it changed my life forever. And I mean, one of the proudest things I can tell you that I can say about my Air Force 28-year military career, I was in Thompson Blue.
Yeah.
I was a Thompson Blue member. And man, so proud of that fact. I mean, so proud of that fact.
Is there anything in your career, I can say for mine, this is an absolute, there was nothing to compare to it. There was nothing more physically and mentally demanding than that over my 20-year career. Not Desert Storm wasn't even close to being that physically demanding. And I remember when I got home, I slept for a week. I just slept for a week. I
was exhausted.
I was completely exhausted. I can't imagine what you felt after all that decompression.
So towards the end of our 93 tour, again, secrets, breaking news.
Yeah.
I was so exhausted at the end of that tour, mentally and physically, that, there were times when, you guys would be setting up and I would just go to a holding area there and just kind of decompress.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you probably know that as you were tour director, and you just find that empty space by yourself and you just kind of just rest your eyes and breathe for a second.
Yep.
Before you start going 100 miles a minute again. But I mean,
well, you had to grasp those moments when you could, because you didn't know when the next one was going to be. If there was a moment to grasp 10 minutes in the dark, you grabbed it. You grabbed it.
Yeah. Because as tour director, the show, once the show is over and you packed up the truck, your job didn't end.
Correct.
Your job didn't end. Like I said, overseas, you're going back to your room, you're calling chief, you're talking about the show, you're doing paperwork, you're making sure the team is set to go for the next leg of the trip, wherever that trip may be, making sure the flights are set, making sure your equipment's set, making sure all the logistical billeting stuff's taken care of. So your job, it didn't end when you went back to your room. And
right.
so you were mentally and physically exhausted. Gratifying, 100%.
100%.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely physically and mentally exhausting. But the first tour, I will tell you, in '89, I was a male vocalist, so it was great. And I had such a blast. And then I went back to my base in Clark in the Philippines, and at that point, karaoke was like really big.
Oh,
karaoke!
I know where this is going.
Yeah, karaoke was huge.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think from the time I went back to the base until I left there in June of '91, I think I did nothing but karaoke almost every night.
Really?
It was amazing. Yeah.
You didn't get any groups? You didn't get any groups or anything? No bands?
I didn't. I didn't get in any groups there in the Philippines. I did a lot of solo stuff, but I didn't do any groups at all.
So have you done? Well, that's an interesting question. Have you been in any groups?
I have. So when I got stationed in Guam, I was actually part of. So I worked part time. A lot of people would joke and say it was my full time gig. I worked part time at a radio station, 94 Jams in Guam, and so. That was the name of the station at the time. And we formed a group called Men of 94 Jams.
Oh.
And we actually, believe it or not, true story, we actually opened up for Martha Reeves and the Vandellas.
Shut up.
And we opened up for Coolio.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a pretty cool gig. That was a pretty cool gig. And so that was the group I was in. And then currently I'm in a group here in the DMV, which is actually across the country, but it's CAMO, Centers for American Military Music Opportunities.
Oh,
And so I'm in, what's
is there
that?
a link to that? Is there a link to that you can give me later on? Is there something
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I want to see that.
Yeah. So it's called CAMO, but the group I'm in is called At Ease.
Oh,
so
I like that.
we do gigs. Yeah, we get to do gigs, and it's I highly encourage you, if you have a chance, look it up. Camo, it's a great organization.
Well,
It really, it's something that really helps veterans, active duty. It's music therapy. I mean, honestly, it's a great organization that I'm part of, and I've been afforded so many opportunities with that as well. I mean,
yeah.
Here in the DMV, I've actually been able to sing the national anthem for the Washington Commanders, the Washington Wizards, and various gigs. So yeah,
That's very
I
cool.
continue to sing and continue to do karaoke.
Of course.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Mark. That's awesome.
Right.
Well, I was looking at. I went through. I have the Dover tape, and I have the Dover tape, and I have. I want to say it's South Carolina, but I was watching one of your monologues. I was comparing. I was like, I wonder if Mark. So Dover was like, I don't know, a third of the way through. You were there for the Dover show, right? Then you left.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yep.
yeah. So I was, yeah, you must have, because you did the monologue in that show. So I'm watching the Dover show, and I watched another show that was way down the line. And your monologues, I could have synced those up, and they'd have been exactly right.
Really?
In the specifically in the patriotic set. I mean, it was like, I was like, there's no way. So I'm looking at the two tapes, and I'm I apparently have a stopwatch. I'm like, he nailed this exactly, time-wise, perfectly. It's 40 shows later. That was impressive, Mark. There was no ad-lib. There was no adjustment for somebody coming out wrong. I mean, you were just boom. It was pretty cool.
That was fun. I love doing the monologues. I really did. Until you drew a blank and you had to make up a line.
Well, that was my next question. How long did it take you to get those? I mean, all the vocalists had to learn stuff. The musicians had to learn stuff. But the monologues, that seems to be a little bit more pressure to me.
Well, the monologues, if you remember the beginning monologue, I came out and opened the show. So it was like, welcome to Thompson Blue 1993, the 40th anniversary tour of Thompson Blue, or whatever the case may be. And it was a long spiel. I think I always got harassed because I would be like, for 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah. Remember that?
That was the thing. We almost got you a shirt. 40 years. That was great.
You guys would always harass me for 40 years, Thompson Blue. And everybody would harass me on that line.
That was because it was interesting, because you emphasized it the exact same way every time. That's a gift, man. I don't care what anybody says. That's a gift.
Yeah, it was fun. It was cool doing it. I really enjoyed doing it.
What do you think when we went to Eastern Europe? First of all, that experience. I mean, I know all our tours have their little different experiences. Some people went to Cuba. Some people went to the desert. We didn't go to the desert. Sure. We didn't go to Cuba, but we went to Eastern Europe. What do you think was the most, not emotional, but what do you think was the thing in Eastern Europe that really set you back, either on stage or what we saw over there in Eastern Europe, that just blew you away?
Well, I mean, there were many things. If you remember, Heal the World. Remember we did Heal the World? Wasn't it Heal the World?
Yep.
I remember Maurice sang it, and he was amazing. He sang, it was so good with singing that song. Yep. But if you remember, every time we did Heal the World, like the crowd, some of the crowd would come up and they would bring roses to the stage, if you remember that.
Yes.
That was so cool. And so moving that they would do that. And then you go to a place like Albania, and you think about all the things you have and get to experience. And if you remember, when we landed in Albania, I think it was a C-130, that the runway was so short that we had to stop on the runway, unload the equipment on the runway into a truck.
I remember vividly.
Yeah. And so you think about that, and I'm sure now it's a lot different there. But what we had to do to do the show for everybody there, which was incredible. And then you go to Hungary, and if you remember, I believe it was a week before we did the show in Hungary, Michael Jackson performed at the same square.
Yep.
The same square.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. I mean, and just the how really I think how moved the people were when we performed those concerts will always be etched in my mind.
Well, was it Bulgaria or Hungary? I may be getting my countries confused.
No, I think you're right. No, I think you're right. Bulgaria.
Plovdiv, Bulgaria? Plovdiv, Bulgaria, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Bulgaria. You're right.
And that was the city where they dropped leaflets on the town. I'm pretty sure I got this right. They dropped leaflets saying, American entertainers, Tops and Blue. Because I remember at sound check on that town square, there was 5,000 people at the sound check.
Incredible.
It was nuts.
Absolutely incredible. And they were, I mean, sounds crazy, but you were like rock stars.
Yeah. They'd never seen live Western performers before. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so cool to do that, and so, I think, again, to me, by far, that was definitely the highlight of the 40th anniversary tour.
Yeah, I would agree.
Our tour in 1993. That was so amazing.
Yeah. I remember something, maybe it was even you. We did that show, and like right before Heal the World, because that was the final number, somebody told us through our earpieces, last note of the song, put your instrument down and get off stage. Just run. We're going to tell you where to go to, because the crowd was really starting to push up against the stage, and the Bulgarian army, their security forces or whatever, were having a hard time handling the crowd. And we started doing
right. Yeah, there were so many people.
Got kind of iffy.
Yeah, it did. It did get kind of iffy. You're right. We had to you guys had to get off the stage.
Yeah, had to get off the stage, and then
I remember that.
We went to like a museum of some sort, and then they finally barricaded off a line so we could walk through and shake hands and whatnot. And it was crazy.
Yeah, that was a crazy moment for sure.
Yeah. So what I want to do, Mark, before I let you go, I've got a speed round for you. We're gonna do a speed round.
Here we go.
Right? Okay. All right. First one to come. Well, not necessarily the first that comes to your mind, but just give me your honest answers here. Ready? Favorite song in '89.
God Bless the USA. I did it.
Okay. That was low hanging fruit, Mark. Come on, man. You can't repeat the answer twice. It's a favorite song in '93.
Ooh.
I know what you're gonna say.
Hold on here. Let me think about this one. Let Freedom Ring.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna stop this just for a second. I'm gonna pull a pause button here. The patriotic set, and this is from a musician's bass player's point of view, that was like a rock opera to me. I could not wait to play that. It was so powerful to me. It was like a rock opera. I mean, it was like nothing I've ever done before in my life.
Ring?
Huh? Well, that Freedom Ring was
the
a
whole
big
set?
The whole patriotic set to me was like a rock opera. It was so huge. And when they started mixing, they mixed a little bit differently in the back on the back end of the show. So the show sound wise got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then by the time the patriotic set, it was amazing to me. And Let Freedom Ring, I looked back at some of the videotapes, and I literally was having so much fun and so into the patriotic set. It was crazy. I can understand Freedom. I thought for sure you were going to say the acapella tune you guys did.
It's all right.
It's all right. I thought for sure you were going to say that.
No, when Nebu sang that "Let Freedom Ring," oh man, it got me. Oh, it got me. I love that one.
Yep, I would agree. All right. Favorite Eastern European country we went to?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to say Estonia.
Oh, Estonia rocks. Remember that load-in at Estonia? How we had to go up that sidewalk driveway thing we had to drag the equipment. That was a crazy. There's some great pictures of that in the Tops of Blue book. That was a crazy load-in.
Country, I love that place.
Either tour, most embarrassing onstage mishap.
Oh my gosh. 1989. We went to the Panama Canal. And so we're all looking at the Panama Canal and it's all cool. All the cast is there. And so me being a superhero, I decided I want to get a better view to take a picture. So I jump up on this, they have the benches and then you have like little overhangs. So I jump up and get on top and I'm going to take a picture. Well, first of all, Fletcher's afraid of heights. Okay. So I'm already afraid of heights. I'm on top of this thing. So what did I do? I decide, you know what? Oh God, how am I going to get down? So I have to jump down, right? So, I'm standing straight up. So I jump. Oh, yeah. All the way down, fall flat on my side, sprain my wrist, have to go to the hospital after the show. I'm out for a week, can't lift anything because I hurt my wrist.
Wow.
Embarrassing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Not good.
Anything in 93? Any embarrassing moments you can remember in 93?
Oh, let me see. 93. Gosh. Probably when I screwed up the monologue in Eastern Europe. That was pretty embarrassing for me. Or also, when, if you remember this, I told you about when we talked about the doors not opening.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, this was at the beginning of the tour. And we were in Patrick Air Force Base at the time. And Chief says, Mark, you're going to fix this in the next show. You better fix it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you remember this, but we were like, we had a few days off, but guess what? We spent the whole time working on that door. We were so tired.
We did everything to that. We did everything to those doors. It was a complete revamp.
But guess what? Oh, by the way, I had to go to like the Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever to get something. And oh, by the way, I was so exhausted, I fell asleep at the light. Fell asleep at the stoplight. So,
I can see that.
Beep, 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 beep. So we get back. It's the night of the show, right? And I'm like, God, please let these doors work. Please let these doors work. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tops of Blue 40th anniversary tour.
Yeah. And they stopped.
All the work that we did to prepare, the doors did not open.
So just to give the folks an idea of what we went through. So like Mark said, it was a box that opened up like this. Okay, open up like this, closed and open. We had two motors with wheels, a wheel on each corner of the stage that were chain driven, that were controlled by Roy, our drummer. He had the switches. And if the floor was not perfectly level, there was no wrinkles in the dance floor, it worked fine. It worked great. But if there was any flaw on the stage, it had a pretty high percentage chance of stopping somewhere. So we got fairly good at adding weight, putting programs underneath the stage so it would weigh down so the wheels would grip. But folks like Kevin and the keyboardists on the ends, they got to where they could shimmy and play to get the wheels to stick, to get the doors open. And if you may not remember this one, but the very last show we did in Lackland, the left door hung.
Yes.
And I'm like, so I remember Kevin being like right here, the door's trying to open up, and he's looking at me. So I'm sitting there trying to play. We're all trying to push the door. I'm thinking, here we are, the last show, and the door screws up.
The last show. And if you remember, every time the doors wouldn't open during these shows, like you would have the dancers doing their thing coming out, and you would see them kind of like doing their dancing and holding on the door and opening it up.
Yep. We had little tricks, but what was crazy. I know we're kind of getting off the path here. What was crazy is we would ops check those doors so much before the show. We're like, oh, it's going to work. We have the entire ensemble on stage, work it, open it, go. And then one out of every 5, one out of every 6, one out of every 7 shows, the door would hang up. One of the doors would hang up. It was crazy. Staging nightmare. It was a staging director's nightmare.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, old friend. You got any questions for me before we wrap this up?
No, you know what? Let me go back to the question you asked, the first question you asked, favorite song in 1989. Let me tell you why I love God Bless the USA. Not because I sang it. I just love the song, period. But let me tell you why. I will tell you, Dave, that I didn't see a lot of Tops and Blue shows before I joined Tops and Blue. So our first show was in Germany, I believe it was. In 89, and I did God Bless the USA. That was the ending number. As you know, every show was that's how we ended. And I'll never forget that, first verse, chorus, second verse, man, people stood up. Everybody started standing. I had never, ever experienced that in my entire life. And I'm telling you, Dave, I couldn't finish the song. There were many nights I was crying because I couldn't finish the song. And I'll never forget, I got off stage, and if Mr. Edwards, if you're listening or watching this right now, I got off stage and I was crying my heart out. And I went back. Forgive me. I went back, and Chief was there crying.
Wow.
And he gave me the biggest hug.
Oh,
and
that's nice.
It was
wow,
pretty darn special, man. That first show was pretty darn special, and I knew that, like I said, I knew I was part of something that honestly changed my life forever.
Well,
that's why.
That particular song, I remember the first, wasn't at Lackland, but the first time we did it off of Lackland, and the audience stood up. We weren't even 13 measures into the song.
Right.
I was so blown away by that response, which I think is one of the reasons why the patriotic set meant so much to me at the back end of the show.
Sure.
It just meant, that the way the patriotic set was built, which obviously led to God Bless the USA, was so huge. And you're just doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And then you live off of God Bless the USA, and you're like, you're at the top of the entertainment mountain all of a sudden. But it wasn't so much about the song. You just felt the power of patriotism just flying into you from the audience. Just
absolutely.
I just sat there and just absorbed it and played harder and better with more emotion. It was. I understand. I get why you picked that song. I totally do.
Yeah, and Dave, and the thing about it is, and you're right. The song is amazing, but it was the response and the patriotism, and that was every single show.
Yeah,
it wasn't just like one show here or there.
Yeah,
it was the response was every single show, and it was just incredible. Incredible. And those memories will always stay on my mind, always, forever. But for you, are you performing anywhere?
No, I'm not in any bands. I gave up the band thing a long time ago. I do this now behind me.
Okay.
guitars and basses. I'm in a really weird experimental phase of my music life. Now that I'm fully retired, I have more time to do stuff.
Sure.
And so I just decided I'm gonna learn some piano. I'm gonna play some guitar. My granddaughter plays the violin, and she's let me borrow her violin. I'm trying to understand other instruments, not to get good at them or to play them. I just want to understand other instruments now, because I just spent so much time on the bass, which is fine. But I just wanted to learn other instruments, so I just started.
Which you were a mean bassist, by the way.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, you were. You're amazing.
It was a fun show. I really enjoyed that show.
I did too.
And it was an honor and a pleasure to work with you that year. And I think even though I know what you said at the beginning of this podcast, but you were an absolutely wonderful tour director. You did all the right moves. You handled us perfectly. Like you said, you were a staff sergeant. I was a tech sergeant. when I was on 97, I was a master sergeant. And I had lieutenants and captains working for me. It was very weird. It was
Very, very weird.
very weird.
I appreciate you tolerating me, all of you guys.
Oh,
And
no,
you know,
you did great. Absolutely, I say that from the absolute bottom of my heart. You did a great job in '93, and you're a consummate performer, and you did really really well.
I appreciate that, brother. I
over the
really
top
do.
proud of you. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and much love to you, man. And to all those out there listening, that are Tops and Blue family, I love you all. I mean, I love you, Dave. I love, as I told the colonel at the banquet, I love you.
I love you. That's hysterical.
But
If somebody's got the tape of that, I really want to see that.
got it, right? But yeah, it's like I said, there is. I can't tell you. I don't think there's anything more proud that I can say in my military career than serving 2 tours on Tops and Blue. And and so I will forever be grateful to Mr. Edwards, and to all of you guys and gals that toured around the world. It was so cool. Such a cool experience for sure.
Yep, I agree. All right, Mark. Well, if you could, I'm going to go ahead and hit the pause button here and hold on, okay?
Thanks for the opportunity, brother.
All right, folks.
Love everybody.
Mark Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.